There is nothing that happens in my life that happens in vain. So if this happened, it's because it was meant to happen. And let me say, it's because there's the work that I need to do. And let me say this. AIPAC, I'm coming to tear your kingdom down.
Representative Cori Bush, two-time Democratic incumbent of Missouri's 1st District, lost her primary election to St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell. And a whole lot of donor money that was behind him, specifically $18 million, the second most expensive primary election in American history. And the first most expensive was Jamaal Bowman's over in New York, also because of big money donations, specifically coming from one lobby in particular, and that lobby is AIPAC, the Israeli lobby. You can take a look at how close it was. Wesley Bell, again, about less than 7,000 votes ahead of Cori Bush. It was a tough loss. Cori Bush, obviously, again, this would have been her 3rd term. She is a former nurse. She has done incredible things in her time on Capitol Hill, including sleeping on the steps of Capitol Hill, actually, to protest an eviction moratorium that was going to be lifted during a global pandemic. I think you all remember it, COVID-19. And in the last year, she has had the moral fortitude to call for a ceasefire in Gaza, and that earned her the ire of the Israeli lobby, and again, the amount of money that was spent against her. She was in fact one of the first congresspeople to call for a ceasefire in Gaza, only 10 days after October 7th, along with other progressive House members. But there is a little bit more that she said from her, I believe, concession speech, but really sort of redoubling of her efforts. Take a look.
Pulling me away from my position as Congresswoman. Come on, come on. All you did was take some of the strings off. The strings that I have to because I love my job. But all they did was recognize me, so now they need to be paid.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back. Because before the video continues, we just want to urge you to lend your support to TYT. You power our honest reporting. You do it at tyt.com/team, and we love you for it.
All they did was radicalize me, and now they need to be afraid. And those are the words of not only a former congressperson or a congressperson, but also an organizer, someone who came from the grassroots of Missouri, someone who came up because she wanted to reform policing in that state. She wanted to do right by the people of Missouri. But again, outside groups ousted her. They dumped, according to The Intercept, $18.2 million into the race. Bell's backers outspent groups supporting Bush roughly 4-1. AIPAC's Super PAC spent $8.5 million backing Bell's campaign. Democratic Majority for Israel PAC spent $500,000. And major Democratic donor Reid Hoffman's Mainstream Democrats PAC spent $1.5 million in support of Bell. Put a pin in that. AIPAC's money was spent on voter engagement efforts, phone banking, including digital and mail ads. Again, those digital and mail ads are expensive. One of those mailers, if you all remember, was also reported by The Intercept, included images that distorted Bush's features. AIPAC also helped bundle at least 2/3 of Bell's campaign haul. So in other words, just like laundering corporate and outside spending. Here is that image of her from a flyer that AIPAC sent. You can see on the right is an actual photo of Cori Bush. The same photo on the left is the distortion of her face. We can zoom in on that, whatever that's supposed to do. Make her look weird? I don't know. It definitely is racialized though, and it's messed up. But there you go. That's what big money does. And John, I want to kick it to you specifically on this point of fighting back. Cori Bush is not taking this lightly, and the idea that this has radicalized her and she's coming back.
Yeah, on the photo, just to start off, so I looked at it. I don't know exactly what they were going for there, but I know that whatever it was inspired by racism. That's whenever you take a black candidate and then you change their image for a commercial or a flyer, there's one reason why you're doing it. And
Right.
so that's something for that graphic designer to work out, or the candidate, or the campaign manager. But anyway, the entire thing is disgusting. It's gross. There should be a national uproar that an organization could raise a bunch of money, much of it donated by Republicans, and they get to decide what Democrats get to have as their candidates. That's just unacceptable. It is unacceptable that you could spend that monstrous sum of money, and not just in this race, but at Jamaal Bowman as well, as you said, and probably others too, because they raised $100 million, which they can. They have unlimited money because they're wildly wealthy people, and they get to decide what candidates you and I get to vote on. It is so sickening. And in particular in this case, like, I understand that they're going and trying to take out literally anyone who showed an ounce of compassion over the past 9 months or so. But what seems particularly gross about it is they hate that she called for a ceasefire, that she wanted some sort of immediate ceasefire. She wanted all of that. Okay, it would be one thing if she called for it and it happened. And then, oh no, all of what the right wingers and Israeli government wanted, and all of what the IDF military strategy, they didn't get it. They didn't get the thing they wanted. But that's not what happened. A couple of people who actually have some sort of moral core called for a ceasefire, and we largely didn't get it for months and months and months. So the people who just wanted nonstop, an ever-growing mountain of dead civilians in Gaza got what they wanted. And now, as the cherry on top of that, they're gonna hunt for the heads of the people who tried and failed to save innocent lives. Like, it's not enough that you got your mass murder, that you got your genocide. You also don't like that someone made a fuss while you were genociding. That just seems so petty and spiteful. And I also think any of the Democrats who massively benefit in these primaries from the fact that AIPAC or any other massive lobby comes in and decides that they're just gonna buy the entire thing, there should be massive pressure on them to distance themselves, to denounce the spending, not to accept any direct donations. And I don't see nearly any of that, certainly not coming from the Democratic Party, which despite multiple cycles now of saying they're gonna protect all their incumbents, so how dare you progressives run against them? When there's a challenge to the progressive incumbent, then suddenly they saw a squirrel or something, they don't see what's happening with all the spending.
No, and I think that's exactly right. And specifically, this goes out to the vote blue no matter who crowd, because the who matters and what they're fighting for absolutely matters. And so now we're saying it's okay for a foreign government to basically so fragile over their own war crimes that they're upset, as John said, over the call to stop killing. There's nothing in the ceasefire resolution that talks about a two-state solution. Nothing in it that even says Palestinian human rights. Nothing in it that says BDS or right of return. It simply says stop the killing, and even that is too much. And Democrats are so okay with it being any stand-in, Democrat, that they don't actually pay attention to what the things that Cori Bush was fighting for. Again, Green New Deal, Medicare for all, someone who didn't take corporate PAC money, someone who fought for people who were being evicted from their homes during the pandemic. And on top of that, someone who rose to fame and power, through her hard work in the community, in Missouri, in the wake of the murder of Mike Brown in Ferguson. And then of course, after that, in the 2020 George Floyd uprisings, specifically representing Black Americans who are over-policed and who are being killed while living their lives. And I do wanna mention the blue no matter who is not the case here, because Wesley Bell, this prosecutor, is absolutely a far cry from the idea that you would reform the cops in any way, shape, or form. In fact, civil rights groups published a report last month criticizing Bell's office for failing to implement reforms and overseeing a steady rise in the jail population during his time in office. Others noted that while he campaigned not on seeking the death penalty, he let death penalty cases proceed without a challenge. So those were the issues around which Cori Bush was elected and re-elected, mind you. This is the right of every Missourian or of the first district to have their say. And yet they're being influenced with massive, the flyers, the the advertisements, television advertisements, the radio advertisements, the stuff that money buys you to switch horses, go to somebody else who's absolutely not representing what they care about and instead is representing a foreign government. John, I think that is the biggest thing here is when push comes to shove, we have to get campaign finance reform. We have to overturn Citizens United, right? We need commitments from these Democrats. What are they doing about campaign finance reform? We're in a time when everyone's celebrating Nancy Pelosi for getting Tim Walz in there. Yeah. I'll celebrate you for half a second, but what about stocks and your refusal to have limits on what Congress people can buy and trade from the halls of power? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, look, in this particular race, it happens to be that AIPAC is the one that just gets to decide in these races. There have been races over the past couple of years where like big crypto interests have had a completely outsized influence, and maybe in 2 years it'll be something different. I don't know. Maybe it'll be, fossil gas will all of a sudden flex its muscles or whatever. And so there might be a lot of people maybe that see this and think, well, I don't mind because I like AIPAC or I support, not only having all of the needless deaths of civilians, but I also want everyone to be quiet about it, not make me feel bad about the fact that I support mass civilian murder. But maybe in 2 years it'll be an industry or an interest that you're not as big of a fan of. Like there's a lot of really corrupt interests that would love to decide for you which Democrats you get. And that right now they're coming for progressives. Typically that's the way it works, but it doesn't have to be that way. Maybe someday there could be a billionaire who supports actual progressives, and then they can start headhunting off of centrists or something like that. Anyway, it shouldn't just come down to who has the biggest billionaire on their side.
Yes.
Like let's have a system where, sure, you want to raise a little bit of money from people who actually live in your district or your state, show that you have skin in the game or something like that. And then actually debate the issues, debate your life experience, your work experience, your platform. Our elections feel like they have basically nothing to do with that anymore.
Absolutely. And would we tolerate this if it were China, if it were Russia? Democrats would not hesitate in condemning, Russian money. Nancy Pelosi's convinced that everyone who protests against genocide is being paid by Russia. So of course they wouldn't, but only, it's the Palestine exception, it's the Israel exception. And I think the last thing I'll say, I'm very heartened because look, someone like Cori Bush could easily have a different concession speech. It could be, I recognize Israel's right to defend itself. It could be the same hashed over BS lines. It could be, we have to come together. We got to reach across the aisle. We need to, it could be all that. No, I'm going to take your kingdom down. And everyone just looking to reject AIPAC. There is a consortium group of awesome organizers and progressives, and they're coming together to form Reject AIPAC. And it does not stop here, even though, yes, the squad lost Cori Bush.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.